Hi, welcome back. So we are in chapter 4 FSPV1 project at the last outline, that is project execution. We have actually designed a simple kind of interface where in this interface we relied only on two pages. You could see them down here inside the view design. Let's go ahead actually and create the main window. This is our main window. It's going to be exactly, identical to the procedures that we have done in the first applications. So basically we need to create this UI module, which has actual interface.ui, and also it have the QRC. And of course, as I have shared with you my preferred style of creating what's called this update the UI. And once we are ready, now this UI window is actually our main application, and then we create this main window which is actually connected to the __ main that is actually pointing to this main window. Now if we run the application CLI, we should be able actually to see the main window that we've been looking at just now. Now here down I have imported some other new libraries which we're going to be using, that is to graph real-time data. Now, first of all, this is the class main window, and of course I am inheriting the Q main window, calling the super, and then I am actually importing the UI main window, and I'm creating variable called the UI. Okay, these are things we had discussed before. Let's actually connect this to the two buttons here, the view sectors and view profile. If I click on view sectors, I should be going to current widget. If I click on the profile, I go to the profile. These are simple operations just by connecting, depends on the one click on the button. All right. Point here is to start to look at the technicality. By the way, you will see in my code down here something called clear lines, clear company list widget, etc. These 4 functions to clear, and you will see that I'm connecting in case of a click. For example, if I would have to click on this view sector page company, I should be calling this function called clear view sector widget. And what does that mean? Particularly if I am, for example, inside the profile and I'm choosing one company here to check the fingerprint, right? And then I want to go back to view sector to add a new company. So when I click on this button, I want everything here to be refreshed again. So just to refresh the form. These clear functions in particular are just to serve that purpose. First of all, let's work on a queue list widget. The first thing we want to do is to populate the main sector widget, which I mean this particular list widget. So I want to go to the database and pick up all the sectors. So you should be familiar with that operation. Now that's why I'm calling actually up on the loading of the application to call this populate a view sector widget. So if we scroll down here to the built-in function here, so basically what it does, number one, it creates an object from the data center, and I'm calling particularly the return all sectors. So if I go back to data center, now I am inside this data center module, and the return all sectors, this is the first function happened to be. Basically what it does, it calls from the config this inquiry, select all from sector table. So if I go back to, you see, this is the point of organizing your code that way. So not everything on the same page, you got lost. And also the things, indicative names, it take you from one place to another, so you'll not get lost. So if I get back to that inquiry, select all from the sector table. Now I have the inquiry. I create an instance of the database main class, right? If you remember, this is the database main class, which has only 2 functions, one to insert and one to select. Okay. And basically I am saying, well, I want you to go to selector from table, which is going to be this function. And this function actually, expected from you the inquiry, and also if there is any specific value that you would like to select based on. But in this case, we don't want to pass anything to case data, so it will be none. So in this case, we will just go and assume this case data to be none. That's why we did this condition. If the case data is none, which is going to be else here, just make the connection go to whatever inquiry you have and fetch everything and return it back. All right, so basically here, once again, the sector data will be returned to this variable, and then I will actually return this. Now, this is what happens at the data center. Now, the data center from this function returning everything. Now, the main window will enjoy all the sectors in this particular variable. Basically, if there are sectors, just to confirm that we're not going to run into an error if any case happen, I would like to loop inside that sector, and I know now the structure of that sector. It will be exactly equivalent to what the structure of the table I should be familiar with. That will be the ID, and then there will be the sector name. Actually, that's why he basically said the sector name is going to be inside the first location, not the 0. 0 will be holding the ID of the sector. This will be the sector name. Done. Then I'm creating an icon as we did before, and I'm creating QList widget item, which have the icon and have the sector name. And here we go. I go to the view sectors widget, which is basically this guy here, and I'm adding item to that. Now, if I would have to run the application, all right, this function will be actually executed. Then I should be able to see all the sectors from the database. Let's actually go and do that. So if I run Python here, CLI, the main, I should now be able to see all the sectors had been returned, as you could see here. So now we have all the sectors and everything is in order. Now what we want to do next, I want that if I double click on one of these sectors, I would love to again reach the database and bring back all the companies and lay them down here. If you click an item here, double click, you should be calling actually this function. Now the other functions we said clear. Imagine I have select one company, right, one sector, and I double click on it. Now the companies belong to this sector will be viewed here. How about if I double click another sectors? If I don't clear this list widget from the previous items, then the new one will be just graphed on top of the other. So they will be continued. So we don't want to do that. These are just technicality things you will be discovering by yourself if you are recoding this. All right. So the basic idea is that we want, if we double clicked, we need to call this function called clicked item view sector widget. So let's go to view item here. What is inside this function? First of all, of course, as we said, some clearing things. All right. These are important. Now, the first thing I would love to do is to retrieve the current row. If I double click here, is a current row inside this list widget, which has a number. This number index of the list widget. So it usually start with 0, 1, 2, 3, and go forth. Will return for me an integer, which indicating which row I am at. Now, here you have to be a little bit careful. Why? Because the list widget starts from 0, 1, 2, just like Python list or array. However, in the database, when we have actually created the sectors, if you remember, we inserted them. The database did not start with creating IDs, the ID of the sector from 0. It started ID 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why here, what we did, we retrieved the current row and we added 1 to it to match the number. So the number here in this DB index, it will be matching the ID index number for the sectors. Now we have the ID index and we can inquiry based on that. That's exactly what happens. So I am calling again the instance of the data center, and I in particular calling on this function return relevant companies. So if I move back to the data center, if you remember, return relevant companies, they expect an index that you would love to inquire with. And that's why here's the index. I return to it, and basically I go to the config and I say, well, I want you to retrieve this inquiry. Select relevant company from sector companies, because now we are dealing with the third table. I have sector and what are the relevant company. If you remember, this is the third table, which is many-to-many relationship. So if you go back here and say, well, which inquiry is that? This is the inquiry. Select relevant company from sector table, and basically it retrieved the company ID from there. So now when I execute that, and I'm passing, this is the string, this is the ID, and I'm creating a tuple, you could actually pass all this information to the database. Now the database is ready to interact based on that. Now the database selected from table, they will have an inquiry and they will have now a particular case. Just now we said in this selected from table, they assume the case database to be none in case you are retrieving everything. Otherwise, if you pass particular index, they will execute based on that. This is exactly what happens here. All right. So now you will have the company data, and then the function will return this company data to you. Now, what will be returned here, relevant companies, it will be a list of all the companies that is in relation to that. That's why actually this encapsulating way of writing the code is very important to follow a logic. One is connected to the other. There is a kind of a mechanism here. Now I will have a relevant company data. And I say, well, first of all, you're going to check here for all the companies if there are information returned. I have to check now on site this data. Now, what I want, first of all, to get the company index, which is going to be, for example, whatever is the value, it will be retrieved. And then the company information. Now, this company information, you have to get back to the same instinct inside the data center and pass to it. This is very, very important. You have to pass to it the company index. Now, because we are retrieving number here, we did not retrieve yet the relevant information. That's why the third table is providing us with all the relevant company numbers or ID numbers related to the sectors. So now we have to call again the data center, but this time we need to call on this return company given the index function, because now we have an index, right? List of indexes related to that sector. Now, if you go back to this function here, relevant company given the index, which is expecting the index of the company, I think you should guess right. Just call this select all company given the index, and then retrieve, create a tuple, and here is the company data. Now we have actually a company name and a code in particular, all right? So once this company information is retrieved, you could check, of course, it's going to be in a form of a double list. That's why first I'm accessing the information as follows. So it will be in the location of 0, go to 1, then go to 2, where there is a company name is going to be in this location, and company code is going to be in this location. Finally, I append this information as a tuple or a list to the actually empty list that we created to hold all the company. Now I have everything. Now we checked before if there is a relevant companies, but some of these sectors does not have any company, as you will see in a while. So basically they don't have any company belong to them. There is a sector, but no company has been registered to be entitled under that sector. That's why we say else if there actually no relevant company. What we want to create actually here an integrative names and code. We say no company associated and no code. And again, we actually append that to the company list. So in either case, either there are companies or there are no companies, this will be populated with this information. After you finish, you create a for loop, in my opinion, inside the companies, and now you have code and you have name. Either even this could be a code, this could be a name, by the way. So what you do, you pick up the first element to be the code, the second to be the name, as we have actually indicated here. And then again, what you do inside this QList widget, you're gonna create an icon, a QList widget item, and connect or add that item there. That's it. Let's go ahead and actually run our application one more time and try to test this functionality. Here are the sectors, right? If I click on the sector, double click, you could see here what happens. No code, no company associated with this sector, because this sector in the database does not have any relevant companies. But for example, check another one like this guy here, mining. So there are a number of companies. This is the code and this is the name. This is the code, this is the name, as so. So you could see quite clear here. Now this functionality is ready. Now we need to work on one more functionality. Let's say, for example, I select this guy here and I want, if I click at this buttons, add the selected company to profile. So I want to take this and add it to my profile, which is going to be later on viewed from here. So if we get back here, this is where I created the button clicked sections here. I am inside the instructor, by the way, once again, because now I populated, everything is ready. This is ready. Now I am here inside the button. So you see, well, if I click on this add company to profile button, by the way, this is the name of this button here. So if I click on this, I want you to connect to this function, add company profile and button clicked. So where is this function? This is the function. What do you expect? Exactly, you should be familiar now with the flow of the code. I mean, on your own you can find, and there are some actually also good documented lines that can help you. So first of all, pick up the current row. What is the row has been selected? By the way, I just like to always check if the list widget itself, there is something been selected, because sometimes as we cleared the widgets, usually by deleting any selected row, we want to make sure that I am adding something, it's been actually selected. That's why I'm just making this line of code to check if it's not -1. It means there is something selected. So basically what happens here, I want to pick the text of what has been selected, the company text. If you remember now, that text would looks like there is a code and it's a company name. That is what was the text there. Now I'm checking one more thing. If this text has been selected, it's not this line. You remember this line, no code, no company associated with this sector. That means what we are trying to add to our profile is not this, because actually basically there's nothing to add here. Once we are sure now there is a company, really one that has been selected, I'm creating an icon, and then I am creating a QList widget item, right? It looks like this. And I'm adding that text to the profile list widget item. Where is the profile list widget item? It is in the second page. So basically I am adding to this list widget here. There is a list widget here. So I'm adding to that. What I said before, this is a cartoon, app. It is not a real application. This should be actually added to a real database holder where I have my own profile has been actually operating up on that database. But here I am just operating literally on the memory on the same session. That's why I didn't want to make things complicated, but you can expand this functionality, in fact, to be something related to a real life application. So you should connect this database anyway. And after you add this to the profile list widget, you need also to delete it from the current list widget. What I want to do after I actually added the item here, the item have to be removed from here, because I clicked on it, I clicked select, it has to be deleted from here and then be added here. That's exactly the operation. That's why the second line here say, well, take the item from this list widget, which is where actually the operation happens, and then make some clarification by clearing, of course, the selection, etc., etc. Done. Let's go and test whether this actually works good or not for us. So if I run the application one more time, I go to the sectors here. Let's try to add this, for example, and then I click here. So you could see if I go back, nothing has been added because you are not literally doing nothing. So let's try to select another company. Let's select this company, for example. I say add. So you see it's been removed from this list. Now if I go to view profile, it is here. This is now a company. Now we are completely in a control of everything. Now what we want to do, now I'm inside this page. If I select this particular company, because I can add as many as I want, for example, let's add one more company here. Now what I want, if I select this and I click check the fingerprint, I want to do the AI operation behind the scene, as we said, by creating the entire operation around this one, taking the company, previous information, create the fingerprint, the image, etc., and go do the process, all the things. But as we said in this application, we're not going to be doing anything for any of company rather than the Turkish airline as a test, just like to show the operation. So what we want to do now, we want to operate this, check the fingerprint. If you click, I want to do that operation. That's exactly actually what should be the next one, should be, yes, here, fingerprint. So when I click on the fingerprint, I want to run this check print function. Now, if you open this function, first of all, what we want to do, check the current row. what company we are selecting. Again, make sure it's not -1. Extract the text. Now here is the condition to make sure that the company you're trying to check the actually fingerprint for it, it is this particular company, and it should looks like this, Turkish Airlines. I am actually adding these information, hard coding, just a test. With this information should be actually retrieved from streaming data from somewhere. But as it was said, just we're trying to operate to show. Even the image itself, I'm going to show you what the image would look like in a while. I even hard-coded the image just to show you. You have everything now. The company selected something else. I want you to graph this message. Let's go to the sector again, just to choose a random sector here. Let's pick the Turkish airline. Actually, it should be here under transportation somewhere here. Yes, this is the Turkish airline. Add this. Now I have two companies, right? If I would have to come to this company and say, well, check the fingerprint, I'm displaying the message. For this demo, only Turkish airline is operative. Now, if I click on this, click, here we go. Here are the information, as we said, hard-coded for now, but it should be retrieved actually live. The image would looks like this. This is the actual array of numbers that we've been talking about. There are like 14 different labels, which we convert that array into some sort of an image. Now, this image should have like a kind of a label, positive or negative, etc., which is going to be predictive on some lines here. Now, the last functionality we're going to close on, if I click on a live price chatter. That's why here, the last button actually to see is this button, say, to click on a live chat button, which is going to basically connect you to actually price graph function. Now, interestingly here, you have to understand, you could use the pie graph and you could use the matplot. I have decided to use the matplot because there's some functionality I was much more convenient to use. Now here we are talking about streaming data. This is not one-time graph. This graph had to be animated, so to speak. Now to do that with pie side, we need some extra functionality. Number one, we have to be calling the function animation here, the figure canvas. Now these are calling libraries. You have to check them from the documentation why they are like that. And based on that, we have to create completely new class. That's why here at the end, if you actually look at this button, when you check real time, you could see, first of all, what I did actually, I select the current row and just wanted to make sure that the selected item is Turkish Airlines. So make sure it is actually Turkish Airlines. One more confirmation. If that happened, what I did, I created an instance of this real-time main window. When we started, we had looked at this particular variable in the very beginning. Let me go back to that variable here. What is this variable? Well, when the application starts, I set this to none. There is nothing value in it. So basically what happens here, we're saying here, well, if this is none, what I want you to do, I want you to create an instance of this class called real-time main window. It's a completely different class, right? And then assign whatever the instance of that class to this particular variable. I can call something called show, which is basically going to be a new window. That's exact. So this is a way of calling two windows in PySide. You can check the documentation just in case. All right, let's go and check what is this real-time main window class. This is the class. Now, first of all, you could see this class is just inheriting a Q main window. It's a PySide class. It's a completely new window and inheriting a Q main window, as you know. There is an instructor and two functions in it. We are defining a few variables in it. Number one, I'm defining something called canvas. And then I'm setting that canvas into the central widget of this main window, because there will be a main window here. This is a Q main window, which we know how to, what's the outcome of that? Now, what is this canvas? Well, the canvas happens to be an instance of another class, which is called the, for example, MPL canvas. It's a complete random name. And I am passing some sort of features to it, like width, height, and DPI. Obviously, now you should be familiar with these lines. That is a graph. This is a actual class that is inheriting the figure canvas modules, which we have imported just now. Now, what's inside this? Basically, it actually creates a graph and it embeds that class into the main window of this real-time main window. Now, this main window central widget have only one widget in it. That is a figure canvas. Great. Now, what I can do anything matplot over me actually on that particular canvas. This is the functionality, or this is the way how it works. So now basically what you could do from here, you could start now to set a few things. First of all, I set like there's figure and there is axis. Don't forget these are actually a variable name inside the class MPL canvas, the figure and the axis. So these are the normal standard way of creating graph in Matplotlib. And also I am doing here something interesting. I'm calling the real-time price function. What is this function, real-time price function inside? Well, it creates a variable called any, which is going to be calling the animation from function animation. Basically, what it does, it actually call on a function and actually it set the figure and then it draw the canvas. Now this line particular, you want to go and check matplot animation. It basically graph the graph that you want with certain axes with the data on it, and it keep actually doing this again and again, depends on the animation, like every 1 minute, which is I put it in that interval, every 1 second. So every 1 second, what happened, it destroyed the previous canvas and redraw it again. So the question is, what is this animated figure? This is the main core. This is the streaming part. This is where the data will be coming from. I have installed a complete independent server on this local IP on the network, and I am accessing from the config. This is the security part with the username password. There is nothing special here. Actually, it's just a random username and password with essentials, right? So now I'm accessing with the username password. I'm connecting to the server. In particular, I am accessing this CSV file in that server. Now, what is happening on the server, I don't care. But the point is, I am actually retrieving that line. All right. This is exactly what is happening. Now, by the way, this function or this particular function will be run every 1 second. That's why this line here in the previous instructor real time is visiting this function every 1 second. So basically every 1 second I am accessing my server. So what is happening now in the background inside that server, this is another matter. Let me go ahead and access actually the PowerShell of that server. So now I am on that server PowerShell. I'm just accessing server to see what are the information are in there. Now, first of all, let's check the status of this FTP server. And now you could see the FTP server is up and running and information is ready to serve. Next thing we want to do actually is to decide on a certain folder that holds all the information that we need. We have all the information here. Now, where is this file CSV that we actually have access to? This is the file, server Turkish Airlines real-time price. Now, let me just show you what is the information inside that file. You could see the information or the prices actually should be stored in that meta. Now, you could see just number of them are here because I have actually decided to delete the previous one every 100 entry. So let's go ahead actually and see what is the script. First of all, let me activate the actual virtual environment here. Let's read the script actually that is going to do the work for us and retrieve the information. This is the script. Now inside this script, you could see the information just only dedicated to retrieve real-time price for Turkish Airlines. And as you are retrieving the information and the price here, you store this information on this CSV file. And it does this every 4 seconds. If I would have to run this script actually, you could see now the prices, it's real time. By the way, now the price is not going to change because time of this record, the stock market is closed. Let's get back now to our script here. As we said, the information is ready. Now I have access to this particular file on the server, and I'm accessing through a username password. So the FTP server is accessible to me now. Every 1 second, this information is retrieved. Now, the outcome of this line here, it will be stored inside this variable I call the self, the RT price. Now, the RT price, if you remember when we created the class, it was here actually, this stored to none. So every 1 second, a new piece of information will be stored in that RT price. Now, I have a price every 1 second. What I'm going to do with it? Well, basically, I'm creating here a data frame, all right? And I'm creating a price on that data frame, and I'm storing all this information inside this file. Remember this file, the Turkish RT price, which we have created inside the data center when we started all our work in the very beginning, creating the RT price. Of course, you have to do also management of the place and the space. It's not the perfect way to do that, because maybe every some sort of 50 days, delete everything and graph again, something like that. Anyway, and the rest from here to go down is all purely matplot functionality. Set the axis, make annotation, create a text, etc., etc. Now, if I run this actually, graph Turkish online, now if I click here, I am completely in a new window. As you can see, that's what the functionality with it. I can literally get back to my previous window and work. So this is a complete new window, right? And by the way, if you try again and open again the chart, it's not going to open because there is a previous window. That's what we did actually function. Now, actually the price is updating, and these are real time, which is taken actually from the server here. So that was the last functionality in this application as we have actually planned. Now we have reached out to the end of this project, and which is the end of our book. I hope now the Big Bang of Data Science, this material that I have established from the very beginning, from the first book to the second, third, and this is the fourth, have actually contributed some good information and sharing of knowledge with you. And I look forward, if you have any questions or inquiry or something you would like to discuss, feel free to reach out to me through any of the available contact details I will leave. By the end, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to some of the information that I have. It was a pleasure to share with you. Stay good for now and have a good time. Thank you. Cheers.